There are primarily 4 skills needed to beat blackjack with card counting: basic strategy, counting, an optimized bet spread, and playing deviations. In this video, I'm going to break down playing deviations, what they are, why you need to know them, and how to learn them. I'm Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, where we teach people how to legally beat blackjack with card counting. Now, let's say you're sitting at a blackjack table, you're trying to keep the count, you know that more small cards have been dealt than high cards, you got this positive running count, and all of a sudden you're dealt a 16 against a 9 or a 10. Now, you know basic strategy says to hit, but you're thinking, well, if there's fewer small cards, maybe I shouldn't hit, maybe I should stand. This is where blackjack deviations come into play. So what are blackjack deviations? Well, there are times when you should deviate from basic strategy because the composition of the shoe has changed. First thing you need to know about blackjack deviations is that you have to have mastered basic strategy. If you don't know basic strategy perfectly backwards and forwards, there's no point in learning playing deviations. And let me say this one more time to really drill it in. Knowing basic strategy perfectly, flawlessly, and easily is far more important than learning the playing deviations. The blackjack deviations are built upon basic strategy. That being said, when you're perfect at basic strategy and keeping the running count, the reality is there are times at which, as the composition of the shoe has changed, those basic strategy decisions are no longer the most valuable way to play a certain hand. And learning how, exactly when and how to use these playing deviations is going to increase your EV. So let me give you an example. Take the example of buying insurance. Normally, the odds of a dealer having a blackjack with an ace up is 4 out of 13, or a 31% chance. Because on average, 4 out of every 13 cards will be a 10 value card when the dealer has an ace up. With a 31% chance, you are losing money buying insurance. So normally, the saying in a casino that insurance is a sucker bet, normally that is true. But if some of the small cards get removed, there becomes a point at which it is more likely than not for the dealer to have a blackjack than not have a blackjack. And you would actually buy insurance. This is one example of how blackjack deviations will tell you the point at which you go from not buying insurance to buying insurance. Or in the example I gave in the intro of a 16 against a 9 or a 10, those are actually 2 different numbers. A 16 would stay against a 9 at a true 4 and above, assuming you can't surrender. And a 16 would stay against a 10 at a true 0 and above, assuming you can't surrender. Let me tell you a little story about the first other card counter that I ever met. So this was Ben and I. Ben's who I got into card counting with, and through a blackjack forum, we met this other guy that was in our area. We met up at a casino, and we're talking with him, and he's saying, what about a 16 against a 10? Do you hit or stay? And of course we said, well, the deviation is 0, so we're going to hit if it's below that, we're going to stay if it's above that. And he's like, yeah, I know it says that, but don't you just know you're going to bust sometimes if you hit below 0? And we shook our heads and said, okay, this guy isn't really a card counter. Here's my point with that story. Blackjack deviations aren't guesses. It's not saying, well, I know there's a time where I'm going to change and I'm going to kind of follow my heart or my gut or my experience, my intuition, anything like that. These are mathematical points at which the expected value goes from being worth it to follow basic strategy to being worth it to follow this deviation from basic strategy. I know what you may be thinking. All right, Colin, I get it. Deviations are based on math. Anything less than that is playing like a gambler, but math is hard. Do I really need to learn these playing deviations if I want to be a card counter? There are people out there that say you don't need to learn playing deviations, they don't really work, just use basic strategy. Well, to bring some truth to that situation, I filmed a video a while back on the actual value of adding playing deviations to your game. I recommend you watch the entire video, but here's the Cliff's Note version. You can play a positive EV game with just basic strategy, card counting, and an optimized bet spread. But by adding playing deviations to your game, you're going to increase your EV by 10 to 40% based on the rules, the bet spread you're using, deck penetration, things like that. But I don't know anyone that wouldn't want to give themselves a 10 to 40% raise simply by adding this to their game. To try to put that into perspective, for the teams that I've run over my career, those teams have won about $4 million. Now, to consider that $1 million of that $4 million came from playing deviations, it seems like a no-brainer to learn these. That is an incredible amount of value to say, look, of all the money we made, about a quarter of it, maybe even more, came from learning these playing deviations. Beyond that, learning these playing deviations are going to lower your risk and shorten the long run, or basically all the variance of the game. Now, again, it's all broken down in this other video, but that's my argument for why any serious blackjack player would want to learn these playing deviations. Where can you get these playing deviations, and how many do you actually need to learn? The first thing I would say is you don't need to learn the deviation for every possible hand of basic strategy. You can get about 95% of the value by just learning the top 20 playing deviations. Or if you want to be an overachiever like me, you could learn 40 or 50 playing deviations. Where can you get them? Well, we have all of the playing deviations, both a shortened list and an extended list of playing deviations in our membership area, along with a deviation drill, an entire suite of training drills to master card counting. Another place is within our app. We have an iOS app and an Android app, and we've got the charts in there as well. Or if you're saying, Colin, I don't want to spend any money, you can get the charts for free through our website on our deviation page. You do have to give your email address. And if you're thinking, why do I have to give my email address? It's because we don't want to give these out to just anybody. Try again, casinos. It's not that easy. Or you can Google the Illustrious 18. The Illustrious 18 is a shortened version of deviations created by Don Schlesinger. Don Schlesinger's the man. If you want to learn more about beating blackjack with card counting, check out blackjackapprenticeship.com, or you can subscribe below, and we will catch you next time.